Hi, welcome to SMPTE. I'm here with Sim's Jesse Korosi and Greg Ciaccio. And why are you guys here? Why is SMPTE important to you? Oh, and before you get into that,
Yes.
I'm sorry I frightened you. What is SIM? Can you tell us?
So SIM, some people think it's an acronym. It's actually Rob Sim started the company years ago.
Okay.
We are a company that was 8 companies before, and we are in LA, New York, Atlanta, Vancouver, Toronto, and wherever else we need to be throughout the world. We have stage space in Vancouver, over 400,000 square feet.
Wow.
We are one of the largest lighting and grip houses in all of Canada, and we have cameras, dailies, and finishing in many of our cities. In fact, the daily side, where Jesse's from, was formerly known as Bling.
Gotcha, okay.
Most people know that name.
Yeah, and then we also offer offline editorial space as well as our own creative editorial team as well for certain types of work.
Okay, so it's a lot. You guys do an awful lot.
Yeah.
So what is it about SMPTE that interests you? Why are you here? What are you hoping to learn about?
It's interesting, actually. So Code to SMPTE is the HPA, and Jesse's very active in that. I'm a Hollywood manager for SMPTE, and Jesse is?
Yeah, so I'm the chair of the Young Entertainment Professionals Committee with the HPA, and so we're hosting a YEP Day here. And there's also a lot of talks happening during this event for, talks about AI, talks about HDR, and we're always trying to stay up on whatever the latest technology is, and with AI comes a lot of metadata talk, and I think that we've certainly had a keen interest in trying to find ways to help our creatives better their process through the use of technology and metadata through streamlining and finding efficiencies.
Okay.
Yeah. Hollywood's been very much a cottage industry for years. I mean, with film, nothing really changed that much. You had key code, you had later on time code, and the databases were really small. But you add to that a lot of the complexities with file base, and now with virtual production, lenses, all kinds of data that needs to be mined and managed, especially with a lot of the virtual production that's going on. And a lot of the TV shows, you have no idea that they're not really where they are. You think it's production because the budgets for TV are much smaller than, let's say, a big feature film. That metadata or data about the data needs to be cataloged and put to use.
Yeah, and I think that we're really looking at virtual productions, we're looking at the use of very intricate metadata, but we're also looking at the very grassroots of it and aggregating that into one central repository in a database so that we can have analytics about what's been done on production, as well as try to find ways to automate routine tasks through utilizing that metadata. And I think a lot of the studios a lot of them are working towards getting their assets into the cloud, and then, like Netflix and Amazon, they're really pushing towards that being one day a real archive, that being the cloud. And if you marry that with the metadata, there's a lot of really interesting things that could happen. But right now, there's certainly an issue where a lot of that metadata between departments is being thrown away because everyone's kind of doing their own thing, and it doesn't transfer between departments or even facilities in a very cohesive way. Everyone's doing it their own way. So, one of the things that outside of SIM that we're working on with the ASC is also through a new subcommittee to the workflow team is the Advanced Data Management Committee, and our focus is on trying to standardize some of this metadata and data management end of things, because we're certainly at SIM working on a database that aggregates a lot of this info. Let's say you're shooting on a Red, or you're shooting on a Sony and a Vericam, they all have different ways that they catalog this data. We're getting it all into one central repository, and then taking in notes from the VFX Data Wrangler, taking in notes from Scripty, taking in notes from digital camera reports. Anything that's digital that's being noted should be accessible to people and automating things down the road. And like a real world example of that is you talked about the virtual production. So Lightcraft has been working on this product, and it's in existence. It's called Halide Effects. And so that straps onto your camera, and it records the geographical location of where your camera is on set. It takes into account a whole bunch of information that if tracked and logged successfully, you could turn that into a camera file that goes into the visual effects pipeline, where they have a starting place with the camera move, the lens information, all of that, and it's baked into a file that is a starting place for them. And that's one example of many where we're trying to make use of this metadata and not have people start from scratch when receiving content from other departments or companies.
That's pretty cool. So how has it been going? I mean,
It's been going really well, actually, and Jesse's been helming another project at SIM, which is called MetaBank, and that's kind of an answer to this. That's our own homegrown solution. But the thing is, it really is, as he said, an answer to the industry of what's wrong right now, and the fact that we do throw away so much data. It's not in the days where you had 8 film canisters next to you, and as long as you read A1 through A8, you know you had your media.
Yeah.
Now the media is in the cloud, and I think Jack Wenzinger from Amazon had a really good presentation this morning about data lakes and how everyone's going to want everything kind of in a way decentralized, but under control of the client. So you got to rely and have confidence in that metadata.
Yeah, and I think that's a future that a lot of the studios should be working towards, in my opinion at least, and some of them are, in that assets get put into a cloud repository 72 hours-ish after production, and they're all centralized, and then mathematical transcodes can be done from that as long as the metadata is there to support it. So as an example with MetaBank, we've got all of this plethora of metadata that we've attached to the negative, and now when someone says that they want a VFX pull, it can be automated, and all of the information that we need is accessible within there. If we want to do a transcode for promo, anything that we need to know about data that was collected from any department is centralized and there and attached to the negative, and I think that's where the studios need to be, but we need some more standards in place, and we need to have a lot of these companies, like camera companies and even the machine learning companies that are starting to do object recognition, facial recognition, all that. We need to have standards so that this can all collectively go into these kind of centralized databases, whereas right now we have a development team that are like, oh, if it's coming from a Sony, look here. If it's coming from a Red, look here. It's ridiculous, but this is the kind of thing that hopefully as an industry we can start to really come together and standardize, so that this idea of having everything centralized means that the studios do not have, I'd hate to say the word handcuffed, but right now if they want anything done, they kind of have to go to the post house, even though it's their own content. They paid to have all these people log this metadata, but yet every time they want anything done with it, they got to call a post house, and maybe there's little in and out fees and all these little gotchas, whereas they should have access to their own content, and a lot of them are working towards doing that.
So MetaBank it's a proprietary thing that you guys have developed, but are you making it available to others? Like, what's the plan?
I personally feel like anyone that is a software company or hardware company, the people that are best at this are the people that were end users themselves. And that's kind of the standpoint that we have, and we really want to refine it and get it really locked down with our current clients before we expand out. There's certainly a world where we could branch that out and allow other people to use it, but for right now, we could have anywhere between 30 to 40 jobs at any given time that we manage, and that's our focus right now, is scaling it so that all of those jobs could utilize it. At the same time, there's no performance hits, and we're learning from our current clients that are really willing to give us feedback and collaborate with us, and I think that right now is the focus. Eventually we could expand out though.
And a good example of that is, at another place I was at, we created the on-set color corrector, and so DP Lights was the actual product, but out of that work, the ASC CDL became the standard. And so now many people use the ASC CDL as a common practice.
Absolutely.
This would be very similar. MetaBank would be for everybody.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Greg, Jesse, thank you so much for coming by and sharing your information, and I hope to see you again soon talking more about MetaBank and helping workflows, really.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.